Did history erase Tartarian? Mind-blowing conspiracy explained. Dive into the wild world of the Tartarian Empire. Erased history or elaborate myth? Tartarian theories, hidden architecture, mud flood, evidence, ancient global maps, and claims that mainstream history hid an advanced, lost civilization. Imagine, if you will, a world where the history books you studied in school are not the unassailable truths they claim to be, but rather a carefully constructed facade, a veil covering the traces of a colossal empire that once spanned the globe. What if the narrative of human civilization has been deliberately altered, rewritten by powerful forces to conceal the existence of a lost superpower known as Tartarian? This is not merely a flight of fancy, my friends. It is a profound mystery that has ignited the imaginations of seekers of truth across the ages. And tonight, we shall peel back the layers of this enigma together. Good evening, dear listeners, and welcome to another captivating journey through the shadows of time on Mystery History for Sleep. I am Mr. H, your guide into the enigmatic realms where history whispers secrets that the world has long forgotten. Tonight, as you settle into the comfort of your bed, allowing the gentle cadence of my voice to lull you towards slumber, we embark on an exploration that challenges everything you thought you knew about the past. Let us begin by pondering a question that goes right to the heart of what we know. Is the history we know a fabrication, a grand illusion perpetuated by those who hold the reins of power? For centuries, maps from the 16th to the 18th centuries depicted a vast region called Tartar or Tartarian, stretching from the borders of Europe through the heart of Asia and even touching the edges of North America. This was no mere wilderness or collection of nomadic tribes. It was portrayed as a unified empire, a beacon of advanced civilization with cities of unparalleled grandeur, technologies that defied the limitations of their era, and a cultural heritage that influenced the world. Yet by the 19th century, Tartarian vanished from the maps, erased as if it had never existed. Historians dismiss it as a vague term for Central Asia and Siberia, a label applied by Europeans to an unfamiliar land. But what if this dismissal is part of a larger conspiracy? What if Tartarian was not just a name, but a thriving global empire whose downfall was orchestrated by shadowy organizations like the Freemasons or the Illuminati, entities whispered to control the threads of history itself? Imagine this empire at its height. Towering structures adorned with intricate domes, spires reaching toward the heavens, and architecture that blended beauty with functionality in ways that modern engineers still struggle to replicate. These were not the crude buildings of a primitive society, but masterpieces of design, incorporating elements that suggest knowledge of electricity, advanced masonry, and even free energy systems drawn from the atmosphere. Proponents of the Tartarian theory argue that this empire was home to a harmonious blend of cultures where people of diverse origins, including the Moorish descendants from Africa and the indigenous peoples of the Americas, collaborated to build wonders that dotted the landscape. According to some accounts, the Moors, often depicted in historical art with regal poise and dark complexions, were not mere invaders or traders, but key architects of this A-Balm, their lineage tracing back to ancient biblical tribes like Judah. Similarly, the Native Americans, far from being isolated hunter-gatherers, are said to have been master navigators and builders, their ancestors assisting in the construction of megalithic sites and pyramids that are comparable to those found in Egypt and Mesoamerica. It is asserted that these peoples were the true heirs to Tartarian's legacy, only to have their history stolen, their lands conquered, and their identities suppressed by European colonizers who rewrote the story to suit their dominance. But why would such a magnificent empire be hidden? The answer, as the theory unfolds, points to a cataclysmic event and a subsequent cover-up of epic proportions. Enter the concept of the mud flood, a phenomenon that allegedly buried entire cities under layers of earth and sediment in the early 19th century. This was no ordinary natural disaster. It was a global reset, a deluge of mud that engulfed Tartarian metropolises, leaving only their upper stories visible. Think of the grand buildings in cities like Chicago, San Francisco, and even Paris structures with basements that appear to have been dug out from beneath the ground, windows half buried in soil, and doors leading to nowhere. Conspiracy theorists posit that these are not new constructions, but excavated remnants of Tartarian hastily repurposed by the victors to mask the truth. Photographs from the era show these edifices emerging from the dirt as if the earth itself had risen to swallow the past. Who also benefited from this deletion? The secret backing of the emerging industrial powers of Europe and America societies that sought to monopolize knowledge and resources. The Freemasons, with their symbols etched into architecture worldwide, are often accused of being the architects of this deception, using their influence to tamper with records, destroy evidence, and propagate a linear history that celebrates Western progress and bury the achievements of others. To grasp the scale of this alleged conspiracy, consider the World's Fairs of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Events like the Chicago World's Columbian Exposition of 1893 showcased sprawling complexes of white marble palaces, lagoons, and technological marvels that seemed to materialize in an instant. Official history tells us these were temporary structures built for the fairs and then dismantled. But skeptics argue otherwise. These were surviving Tartarian buildings unearthed after the mud flood and displayed as novelties before being systematically destroyed, often by mysterious fires to get rid of any lingering evidence. The Panama Pacific International Exposition in San Francisco in 1915 followed a similar pattern with opulent edifices that echoed ancient grandeur only to vanish soon after. Why the haste to demolish such beauty? Perhaps because they held clues to Tartarians' advanced society, including free energy devices disguised as ornamental towers and domes that harnessed atmospheric electricity, much like the ideas later attributed to Nikola Tesla. Tesla himself may have drawn inspiration from suppressed Tartarian knowledge, his inventions stifled by the same forces that orchestrated the empire's downfall. Delving deeper, we encounter the role of maps as silent witnesses to this lost world. Antique cograph from explorers like Marco Polo and icographers such as Abraham Ortelius depicted Great Tartarian as a sovereign entity divided into regions like Grand Tartary, Chinese Tartary, and even Muscovite Tartary. These maps showed sophisticated road networks, bustling trade routes, and cities with names that have since faded into obscurity. By the 18,002, however, Tartarian was fragmented and absorbed into Russia, China, and other nations, its name relegated to folklore. Was this a natural evolution or a deliberate act of historical revisionism? Some theorists link it to the Vatican and the Jesuits, claiming they tampered with geographical records to conform to a Eurocentric worldview, which seeks to justify colonialism by erasing non-Western empires. The Illuminati, that elusive brotherhood founded in the 18th century, is also implicated, their pyramid symbols allegedly echoing Tartarian motifs found in architecture across continents. Let us now turn to the human aspect of this mystery, utilizing the voices of those who are aware of the truth below the surface. In the comments of seekers like yourselves, we hear echoes of a suppressed heritage, tales of a mud flood that drowned everything, including claims that Native Americans and Black Moors shared the land, and that it would take generations to reclaim built the Tartarian Empire. These individuals, described as the biblical Israelites, are said to have forged this realm. Their descendants in America, not primarily from Africa, but from ancient lineages that navigated the seas and erected monuments worldwide. The Moors, as royal descendants of Judah and the indigenous tribes, also known as Israel's Lost 10 Tribes, came together to create cities and railways that spanned the globe. Yet European conquerors invaded, stole their territories, identities, cultures, and histories, and then erased the records to prevent their discovery. The theory therefore goes, we see Moorish figures or Native American motifs on Tartarian structures, subtle hints of their true builders. Imagine walking through the streets of a modern city, gazing at a neoclassical building with its columns and arches, and realizing it might be a Tartarian survivor. In Washington, D.C., the Capitol building's dome could be a relic of this era, its design too advanced for the supposed time frame. Or consider the ornate train stations with roofs in Europe, like those in Milan or Budapest, that seem engineered for energy collection rather than mere shelter. These are not coincidences. They are breadcrumbs leading back to a forgotten age. The mud flood theory gains traction when we examine geological anomalies. Urban excavations' uniform sediment layers point to a swift burial rather than a gradual accumulation. Some even speculate that this flood was engineered perhaps through alchemical means or ancient weapons wielded by rival factions within the empire.